You're wearing about 60 pounds of forged steel. The visor on your helmet gives you roughly the same field of vision as a mail slot. Your horse is having an existential crisis. The guy riding toward you has a lance, and somewhere in the chain of command above you, the lord you've sworn sacred oaths to is making decisions with the strategic wisdom of someone who has never personally been stabbed. This was medieval knighthood, glamorous from a distance, considerably less glamorous from the inside of a helmet, in August, in a swamp. Now, settle in. Maybe crack a window. Let's begin. Picture this. You are standing in what military historians generously call a formation. Around you, thousands of men are screaming. Horses are colliding, and the general soundtrack is somewhere between a blacksmith shop and the end of the world. In medieval combat, the banner wasn't decoration. It was your GPS, your chain of command, and your only proof that your side hadn't already lost. A knight who abandoned his lord's banner without direct orders was finished. Not just in today's battle, finished in the way that makes your grandchildren apologize for you at dinner parties 3 generations later. The consequences ran deep. Land seized. Alliances severed. Some disgraced knights had their spurs literally chopped off in public ceremonies, which is medieval Europe's version of deleting someone's LinkedIn profile in front of a crowd. Others had funeral rites performed while they were still breathing, as if their honor had died and the body simply hadn't received the memo yet. Here's the dark irony. The banner also made you a target. Bright colors on a tall pole in the middle of a battlefield is essentially a formal invitation for every archer in the opposing army. The thing that demanded your loyalty also advertised your location. 2 people with arrows. Medieval honor operated on a level of commitment most modern people reserve for very bad mortgage decisions. The whole smells like wood smoke, roasted animal, and wine that hasn't entirely finished fermenting. Somewhere to your left, 2 nobles are loudly disputing a border incident. Someone has already knocked over a cup. The lute player looks like he deeply regrets his career. And yet, the rule was absolute. No stabbing at feasts. Feasts were considered sacred spaces, not in a quiet, candlelit sort of way. We are technically agreeing to be civilized right now, even though we've been trying to ruin each other's families for a decade. Hospitality created a temporary ceasefire, and that ceasefire held actual political weight, because medieval governance was conducted almost entirely over shared meals. Marriages were arranged between bread courses. Alliances were cemented with wine poured from the same jug. You could not build the diplomatic infrastructure of a feudal kingdom if someone kept killing the ambassadors before dessert. That said, some feasts became infamous precisely because someone decided the rules didn't apply to them. The Black Dinner in Scotland, where young nobles were invited as guests and then executed, is the historical equivalent of a dinner party, where the host waited until everyone had their coats off before announcing there'd been a change of plans. The standard punishment for attacking someone at a feast ranged from heavy fines to imprisonment to execution, depending on who you'd attacked and how many people had witnessed it, because in medieval Europe, violence itself was fairly negotiable. Ruining a good dinner, apparently, was not. You are a knight. You are tired. You are also, according to the entire ideological framework of your profession, responsible for the safety of the exhausted group of pilgrims you encountered on the road 40 minutes ago. Christian pilgrimages were among the most common long-distance journeys in medieval Europe. Hundreds of thousands of people crossing mountain passes and forest roads toward shrines they may have never actually reached. The roads between here and there were populated by bandits, mercenaries, and desperate men who had noticed that pilgrims tended to carry food, money, and very little in the way of personal security. Enter the knight. At least in theory. In practice, the same code demanding knights protect travelers also produced knights who occasionally robbed travelers, depending on the knight's character, financial desperation, and whether anyone was watching. Medieval morality had an elastic quality that stretched considerably under economic pressure, but publicly abandoning pilgrims, refusing to ride escort because you had better things to do. That was a reputation-ending move. The church had reached that extended far beyond Sunday sermons. Bishops could embarrass nobles. Priests could shame entire households. And medieval gossip networks were astonishingly efficient. For a civilization without postal service, Some knightly orders built their entire identity around pilgrim protection. Most famously, the Knights Templar, who started as a handful of warrior monks guarding the roads to Jerusalem, and ended up so wealthy and politically powerful that the King of France decided they needed to be arrested, dissolved, and largely burned, which is one way a hospitality initiative can spiral out of control. Thousands of spectators, trumpets, colorful banners, a man in full plate armor preparing to ride directly at another man in full plate armor while both of them hold wooden poles the length of small trees. This was sport, medievale sport. Tournaments were simultaneously military training, public entertainment, job interviews, and social currency. A knight who performed well gained fame, money, patronage, and the attention of powerful nobles who might hire or marry them. A knight who performed poorly in front of a crowd of watching lords, merchants, and foreign dignitaries would be discussed unfavorably for years. The rules existed because without them, tournaments became mass casualty events, which they sometimes became anyway. Blunted weapons, prohibited strikes, a prohibition on attacking dismounted opponents that was respected roughly as often as you'd expect when you put competitive armored men in an enclosed space with a cheering crowd. Some periods saw tournament deaths so frequent that kings issued outright bans. The problem was that banning tournaments was like banning feudal nobles from competing with each other, theoretically possible, practically ineffective, and immediately ignored the moment attention turned elsewhere. The joust, 2 riders, 2 lances, maximum velocity, produced wooden shrapnel, traveling at face height when the lance shattered. Helmets helped. They didn't help enough to make anyone feel genuinely comfortable about it. And then there were the melees. Group combat events that looked less like sport and more like organized chaos, where men were captured, ransomed, and occasionally dragged through the mud while nobility applauded from comfortable wooden stands. The concept of a fun day out was interpreted very differently in the 13th century. A cold courtyard, 24 witnesses. Someone has called you a liar in front of people whose opinion matters to your continued existence in polite society. You cannot walk away. Medieval honor functioned as a kind of social currency that, once spent, was nearly impossible to rebuild. A knight who refused a duel wasn't seen as sensible or measured. He was seen as afraid, and fear in feudal culture spread outward like water damage into your alliances, your lord's trust in you, the marriages your family could arrange, the commands you'd be given or denied in battle, so you fugged, even when the fight was obviously stupid. Especially when the fight was obviously stupid. Because backing down from an obviously stupid fight was somehow considered worse. Judicial duels carried an additional layer of theological confidence. Medieval people genuinely believed God would intervene and hand victory to the righteous party. This belief survived countless cases, in which the wrong person won, which the faithful typically attributed to sin, insufficient prayer, or technicalities that made the outcome theologically complicated. Before combat, priests, sworn oaths, weapons inspection. After, debts, humiliation, land concessions, or death. The medieval duel was the ultimate public performance in a culture where every act was for an audience. An exhausted rider emerges from the tree line. His horse is barely functional. He carries your enemy's colors. Your hand moves to your sword, 10 juiced up. Messengers were protected, not by goodwill, but by practical necessity. Envoys carried surrender terms, prisoner exchanges, ransom negotiations, and peace proposals. We told them wars couldn't end. You couldn't even communicate terms for ending the war. Kings grasped this, even when they hated it. Executing a messenger saved one uncomfortable conversation, but invited every future battle to run longer and bloodier, because nobody could safely negotiate. Self-interest, dressed as custom. But the result was the same. Most of the time, you led the rider through. Most of the time, medieval history contains notable exceptions where rulers responded to difficult news by doing something regrettable to the person who delivered it. Don't shoot, the messenger exists. Because people kept shooting the messenger, suggesting the lesson took longer to absorb than one might hope. The night before everything goes wrong, the chapel is full. Knights kneel on stone floors, until their knees quietly file formal complaints. Priests hear confessions in long lines. Men who spent careers participating in organized violence are now itemizing that violence for absolution, creating a theological accounting problem. The church navigated primarily by issuing crusades. Medieval Christianity didn't separate the sacred from the practical, but what prayer was, not a transaction, not a guarantee, an acknowledgement that tomorrow was uncertain, that the man kneeling beside you might not be there by afternoon, and that the business of dying deserved at least one honest conversation with something larger than yourself. Across the field, an army is waiting. The ground between you is about to become one of the worst places on earth. Your job, right now, is to look like none of this concerns you. Medieval battlefield morale operated as a contagion. Confidence spread, panic spread faster. A knight who visibly flinched, who let fear appear on his face or in his posture, didn't just endanger himself. He endangered everyone around him who was watching for exactly that signal. So knights trained not just to fight, but to perform composure, to stand with loose hands and a steady jaw, while something very loud and very lethal moved toward them, to speak confidently about the upcoming battle, in terms that suggested the outcome was already decided. While their internal monologue was doing something less dignified, veterans managed this with what looked like calm, but was actually a kind of emotional exhaustion. The flatness that comes from surviving enough campaigns that the fear mechanism simply runs out of new material. A surprisingly modern response to repeated trauma. Dressed in 14th century armor, you wake up before dawn because the steel is rusting again. A full suit of plate armor cost the equivalent of years of income, several farms. Depending on the period, it was probably the most expensive thing you owned that wasn't also a horse. It represented your status, your readiness, your professional credibility, and your survival odds, all simultaneously. Maintaining it was relentless. Rust from rain, sweat, mud, and blood. Cracked leather straps, loosening buckles, padding that absorb enough moisture to develop its own ecosystem. After campaigns, squires spent entire days cleaning each piece under the disapproving supervision of knights who had developed opinions about the precise, acceptable standard of metal polish. And it had to fit, which was a problem, because medieval knights frequently spent winter expanding through feasts and ale, before needing to return to combat gear in spring. History has not preserved records of exactly how many knights discovered in March that their life-saving protective shell no longer quite closed, but it was probably not a small number. Putting on full armor required help. Multiple people, a specific sequence. And at the end, you immediately began overheating. Medieval engineers created something genuinely impressive. Articulated steel protection that moved with the human body, and also functioned as a wearable furnace with a ventilation budget of approximately nothing. Still, when the arrows started falling, every polished several medieval battles that should have been clean victories became disasters for exactly this reason. Formations collapsed, soldiers scattered, the enemy regrouped. People died who would have survived if they'd waited another hour before picking through the supply wagons. Commanders knew this. They threatened punishment. They promised fair distribution afterward. They got ignored, repeatedly, by men who had learned from experience that post-battle distribution tended to favor whoever was closest to the command tent when the counting happened. Human nature, it turns out, does not respond especially well to trust us. You'll get your share later. When a cart full of gold is visible right now, you are kneeling on cold stone. A sword rests across your shoulders. Witnesses observe silently, and you are swearing an oath that will, in practice, mean you follow this man's decisions, into whatever consequences those decisions produce. Feudalism was, at its core, a system of layered obligations, land in exchange for loyalty, protection in exchange for service, safety in exchange for obedience. On paper, a sensible arrangement for a world without stable governments or standing armies. In practice, a network of personal commitments, so tangled that any given knight might find himself technically obligated to two lords who had just declared war on each other. Medieval political theory never developed a fully satisfying answer to this problem. The actual answer, which most knights arrived at independently, was follow the money, protect the family, and write a letter of explanation after. Changing sides during a conflict was not unheard of, though publicly, it carried enormous reputational risk. Betrayal got recorded. Chroniclers specifically preserved the names of men who broke oaths, because it made for dramatic reading, and medieval Europe's literary culture thrived on dramatic reading. So knights obeyed. They followed lords into campaigns that made no sense, defended positions that couldn't be held, and charged into odds that would have made any reasonable person request a second opinion, because refusing had consequences, and because medieval society had made the internal experience of honor so total that some knights genuinely couldn't imagine the alternative, even when the alternative was clearly the smarter choice. A great hall, velvet, candlelight, polished floors, everyone smiling at everyone else with great precision. This is the most dangerous room you've been in all year. Beyond the shining armor and epic sagas lies a deeper truth. We delve into the complex realities of medieval knighthood and the profound fatalism of Norse mythology. Medieval knighthood, often romanticized, yet brutally real. The ideal knight, a paragon of chivalry and honor, sworn to protect the weak, uphold justice, and embark on noble quests. But the reality was far grimmer. A life forged in steel and blood. Training began young, a brutal regimen of combat and discipline. From squires to knights, every step was a test of endurance. Warfare was constant, a brutal dance of siege and skirmish. Knights were not just warriors, but political pawns, bound by feudal oaths. Loyalty was a double-edged sword. Betrayal and ambition often overshadowed honor. Their lives were short, brutal, and often ended violently. Yet, the legend of the knight endures, a testament to human spirit. Now, we journey north to the realm of Norse mythology, where fate, or word, was an inescapable cosmic force. Every life, every event, predetermined by the Norns. Even the gods themselves were bound by this cosmic decree. Yet, within this fatalistic worldview, heroism flourished. To die bravely in battle was the ultimate glory, a guaranteed passage to Valhalla, Odin's grand hall, where they would feast and train, awaiting Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, the ultimate, inevitable fate, a cycle of destruction and rebirth, not an end, but a new beginning. What connects these two distinct warrior cultures? Both valued courage, honor, and martial prowess above all, loyalty to their lords, their gods, and their people. Yet, their worldviews diverged dramatically. Christian knights sought salvation, divine intervention. Norse warriors embraced a predetermined destiny. One fought for a heavenly reward, the other for glorious memory. From the muddy fields of Europe to the icy fjords of Scandinavia, these ancient tales remind us of humanity's enduring quest for meaning, for courage, and for destiny. What does it mean to be a hero when fate is already written? Brothers would kill brothers. Family bonds, the deepest moral obligation in Norse society, would snap under the weight of starvation and desperation. Every oath, every social compact, every fragile agreement holding civilization together would dissolve. Kings would betray subjects. Neighbors would become enemies. The structures humans built to survive would collapse from the inside. For a culture where loyalty and kinship were the foundation, this was the truest horror. Not monsters, not fire. The moment when the person sitting across the fire from you could no longer be trusted. In Midgard, the wolves Skoll and Hati would finally catch what they had chased across the sky for ages. The sun would be swallowed, the moon would be gone, stars would fall, the sky would go dark. In the deep places, Fenrir's chains would begin to crack. The earthquakes came first. Not small earthquakes, the kind that split mountains and collapsed the floor of the sea. The kind that snapped bindings forged from impossible materials. Fenrir tore himself free. He emerged enormous beyond imagining, flames pouring from his eyes, his jaws stretching from earth to sky. He ran across the world, devouring everything in his path. Settlements, armies, anything standing in the direction of Asgard. Jormungandr rose from the ocean. The serpent that had grown to encircle the world uncoiled itself and climbed toward the shore, poison draining from its mouth into the sea and sky. The coastal waters churned into tidal waves that broke across Midgard. Loki, punished and chained beneath the earth, broke free during the chaos. He emerged not as the trickster who had once made the gods laugh. He emerged as their enemy, leading an army of giants and the dead toward the final confrontation. From Helheim, the dead marched. Naglfar, the ship made from the fingernails and toenails of the dead, sailed from the underworld carrying its impossible crew across black water. From Muspelheim, Surtur advanced, his flaming sword burning brighter than the sun. And at the edge of the Rainbow Bridge, Heimdall raised Jallarhorn. The sound reached every corner of the 9 realms. There was no question about what it meant. The gods had known this sound was coming for as long as they had existed. They had prepared for it, feared it, armed for it, and now it had arrived. They rode out anyway. The plain of Vigiar received everything. Odin rode at the front with Gungnir in his hand, and the Einherjar beside him. Centuries of fallen warriors collected from every battlefield in the world, trained in Valhalla for exactly this morning. The combined weight of divine preparation against prophesied destruction. The prophecy won. Odin charged. Toward Fenrir, the great wolf, devoured the king of the gods, exactly as fate had always insisted it would. Odin's son Vr immediately drove the wolf's jaws apart and killed him. Vengeance satisfied, but the loss irreversible. Thor met Jormungandr in combat so violent it shook what remained of the heavens. Hammer against scales, again and again. Thor finally crushed the serpent's skull. Then he took 9 steps and fell to the serpent's venom. Tyr and the Hound Garm destroyed each other simultaneously. Heimdall and Loki met and ended each other. The defenders of the cosmos fell not from failure, but from completion. They fought until the prophecy was satisfied, and the prophecy demanded their deaths. Then Surtur raised his sword. Everything that remained burned. Surtur's flames consumed Midgard Asgard. The forests, the rivers, the settlements, the remaining gods, the armies, the ruins of the battle. The world tree Yggdrasil trembled, and the 9 realms caught fire around its roots and branches. The seas rose to swallow the coasts. The mountains fell into the water. The sky went from dark to red to nothing, and then silence. The Norse did not end their mythology there, because they understood something that took civilizations much longer to articulate. Endings are not absolute. From beneath the waves, a new earth rose. Green, untouched, fertile, rivers flowing through valleys no one had ever claimed. Forests growing without memory of the axe. Several gods survived, Biwar and Valimor, Ian Magni, who inherited their father's hammer. Balder returned the beloved, the killed, the one whose death had set everything in motion, emerging from Helheim into a world without the corruption that had ended the last one. 2 humans had hidden in the shelter of Yggdrasil during the fire, Leafy and Leafy, Hazi, and now stepped out into a world that needed people again. Ragnarok was not the story of gods who failed. It was the story of beings who knew they would fall and chose the field anyway, who built things worth preserving even knowing those things would end, who maintained dignity and purpose inside a universe that had already written the last chapter. The Norse stared at inevitable destruction and responded, "Plant something anyway. It might survive you." That idea, that continuation matters even without guarantees survived Ragnarok itself. The city awakens before it's invited to roam before sunrises, kitchens and footsteps, and the soft labor of people who cannot afford to sleep late. Grain is being ground, lamps are being filled. Water is being carried from the courtyard fountain by someone who has carried water from the courtyard fountain every morning for years, and has opinions about the arrangement that will never be formally expressed. The wealthy household exists at the center of this activity like a wheel that isn't doing the turning. The dominus head of the household does not simply get dressed. Eis dresset. This distinction matters. A servant selects his tunic, another arranges his toga, the precise folding of which communicates rank, occasion, and intention to every observer before he says a word. Roman elites understood that clothing was not about comfort. It was about message. You were broadcasting before you opened your mouth, and the broadcast needed to be accurate. His wife oversees a parallel operation elsewhere in the house. Female servants wash, arrange, and style hair that has been oiled the night before. Rome was a world that took hair seriously. Styles communicated marital status, wealth, and family respectability, and the wrong arrangement could invite the kind of gossip that moved through the city faster than dispatches from the provinces. Grooming completed. Household gods visited at the family shrine. Brief prayers offered to the Lares and Penates, who watch over the home. Roman religion did not live only in temples. It lived in doorways and hearths, and daily rituals repeated so often they became a kind of breathing. Now, the door opens. They've been waiting. The salutatio was the morning ritual in which clients, people who depended on a patron's support, came to pay their respects and make their requests. The crowd assembled at the entrance of a wealthy man's home each morning was its own kind of census, of his influence, his obligations, his standing in the city's invisible ledger of favors. Some clients were poor citizens needing legal assistance or a small gift of food. Others were businessmen seeking introductions. Others were politicians maintaining connections before upcoming votes. The Roman social structure operated through these obligations you gave. They owed. They gave you owed. A web of reciprocal debt that never fully resolved and wasn't supposed to. The dominus received each visitor with the correct expression. Warm enough to maintain loyalty. Measured enough to retain authority. He remembered names. Or a slave called a nomenclator stood nearby to whisper the names of approaching visitors before they arrived within greeting distance. Rome invented the human teleprompter out of social necessity. This morning, theater lasted hours. By its end, the patron had reinforced dozens of relationships before the city had finished its first round of bread. Then he left for the forum, where the real day began. To understand Roman public life, understand that privacy was a luxury the Republic couldn't quite afford. The Forum Romanum was not quiet. It was noise layered on noise. Senators arguing under marble columns, lawyers conducting cases before crowds of spectators, merchants negotiating beside temples, priests carrying out rituals while beggars worked the periphery, and philosophers occasionally set up near the center to explain what everything meant to anyone who would listen. A wealthy Roman man's presence in the Forum was not recreational. It was professional. To be visible among powerful people was to be counted among powerful people. Social position required constant maintenance, and that maintenance happened in public, surrounded by witnesses. Deals were discussed beside color. Alliances were proposed in passing during walks that looked casual and weren't. A man who disappeared from public view too long returned to find his influence had quietly redistributed. Back at the house, correspondence continued moving. Secretaries drafted letters on wax tablets. Messages arrived from estates in the countryside, business ventures at the port, associates in provincial cities. The wealthy Roman household functioned with the organizational complexity of a modern business. Most of that complexity was carried by educated slaves who received none of the credit and very little protection. The household worked because people inside it worked, and most of those people had no choice about being there. Rome's luxury infrastructure ran on slavery. Not incidentally, structurally. Cooks, cleaners, tutors, scribes, doorkeepers, personal attendants, farm supervisors, financial managers. Every function had a person assigned. Many of those people were enslaved. Some held positions of genuine responsibility. Greek tutors educated the children of Rome's most powerful families, a conquered civilization's intellectuals, becoming the teachers of its conquerors. This is one of history's more ironic arrangements. Financial slaves managed transactions and supervised properties. This created a system where a man could own someone intelligent enough to run his affairs, while legally treating that person as property. Rome normalized this contradiction so completely that it rarely examined it as a contradiction. The comfortable daily theater of aristocratic life required a backstage crew that was expected to remain invisible. Roman women of the elite classes occupied a position that official descriptions couldn't quite contain. The formal expectation: modesty, domesticity, dedication to husband and children, management of the household. The actual practice: economic management, political networking, social negotiation, strategic deployment of family connections, An influence over decisions that would officially be attributed to the men making them publicly. A senator's wife who managed accounts, supervised education, and maintained social relationships was doing work that mattered enormously. In a system that credited her husband for the results, women like Livia operated at levels that alarmed even her contemporaries. She navigated the imperial court for decades, surviving emperors and outlasting enemies, maintaining influence through intelligence and public image. While technically holding no official position whatsoever, the gap between her formal role and her actual power was wide enough to build a republican. The Roman matron was expected to appear effortlessly correct at all times. Effort was the one thing she couldn't afford to show. By late afternoon, the wealthy Roman drifted toward the Thermae, not for cleanliness, though Roman baths were impressive feats of engineering. 8 floors, complex water systems, exercise courts, libraries, and holes large enough to lose a small province. And they went for the same reason people gather anywhere that social barriers are temporarily lowered. To talk, information moved through the baths faster than it moved through official channels. A senator's poorly received speech was dissected before he'd finished speaking. The rumor about the governor was circulating before he denied it. A marriage, a debt, an alliance, a scandal. All of it moved through the warm rooms and echoing corridors with remarkable efficiency. Roman aristocrats were intensely aware that they were being watched and evaluated even during leisure. The manner of your bathing, the quality of your oil, the company you kept, the conversations you chose to have loudly and quietly. All of it was observed and filed away by people doing exactly the same thing to you simultaneously. The baths were, in essence, Rome's social operating system, running continuously beneath the surface of everything else. Nothing in Roman aristocratic life was simply what it appeared to be, and dinner least of all. The Cena, evening banquet, was political theater with food. Guests arrived by social rank, were seated by social rank, and were served according to social rank. The host's proximity to the head of the table signaled more about your relationship than anything he might say directly. Food at a wealthy Roman dinner existed on 2 levels: consumption and display. Roasted meats, fish preparations, oysters, figs, honey pastries, wines from different regions, all arranged to impress. Some hosts became famous for culinary excess, presenting dishes shaped into mythological figures or importing ingredients. Nothing set power quite like serving something nobody had seen before. Conversation during dinner was equally layered. Literature was quoted. Philosophy was invoked. Greek references appeared because educated Romans had complicated feelings about Greek culture, admiring it enormously while having conquered it thoroughly, which created an awkward dynamic resolved primarily through quoting Plato. As wine moved through the evening, the philosophical discussions became progressively less philosophical. The gossip became louder. Political opinions were aired with the particular confidence of men who had been eating for 3 hours. Throughout all of it, servants moved invisibly through the room, refilling, removing, adjusting, enduring. The machinery of aristocratic comfort operating in the margins of the frame. When the last guests departed and the last lamp guttered down, the house exhaled. What had the day been? A client received, a deal negotiated, an alliance maintained, an insult diplomatically survived, a meal that impressed, a reputation preserved, and underneath all of it, the labor of people who slept on the other side of the same walls, who would rise before the household to prepare for doing it again tomorrow. Roman civilization produced architecture that outlasted empires, legal frameworks that shaped modern law, engineering that still baffles reconstruction efforts. It also produced a social order that distributed the benefits of that civilization with extraordinary unevenness and called the arrangement natural. The marble was beautiful. The question of who polished it is one the forum rarely paused to discuss. That's where we'll leave our 3 worlds tonight. In a medieval chapel before a battle, in the ruins of a cosmos preparing for renewal, and in a Roman house where the last lamp has just been trimmed. Rest well. The history will be here when you return.